Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch and you're ready for this. This is the one everyone's been waiting for. So Vijaya kindly did the introduction to all my guests, so I won't go through them again. So we're going to get straight into this. And so the first question is to Saeed, funnily enough. So the question that we have is, what are the challenges that are facing producing live sports in the media, and how are we overcoming these challenges?
Thank you, Dipesh. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here, and I'm very humbled to be on this panel with all the other leaders. I think the challenges faced in our part of the world is very common, really in the whole industry. I think one of the first challenges is always budget, right? Is one of the things that everyone complains about, and literally is what's going on with every broadcaster, every rights holder, and every producer of sport. The other challenge, I think, in this part of the world is the infrastructure, right? Now, you know, one of the most common question that we get asked, or one of the most common approaches that we have, everyone wants to produce this way sport is produced in the rest of the world. But there are potentially two areas that really we struggle with. One is infrastructure that exists, and the second thing is really connectivity of countries together, right? When you compare sport in Europe, it's quite easy and quite straightforward to move between geographies. But you know, when you come to this part of the world, really you don't have an open border as you have in Europe. So logistics becomes another quite a big challenge to contend with.
Danny, from an OTT's perspective and your platform, same question. I mean,
hello. Yeah, look, I think the biggest challenge that we face as an OTT company is latency. It really comes down to latency. You know, in the satellite days, that latency was much smaller between the kind of live game and the broadcast. And in a day and age of so many football apps or sports apps, the customer gets the goal within a second of it happening from the stadium via the applications. And the challenge we have on the broadcast side is, particularly on OTT, you have a latency of up to 15, 20 seconds. So, you know, we're doing a lot of work to try and overcome that issue. How can we get that gap between the live game and the feed? How can we reduce that? Because it's never good to get your goal on your phone before you actually kind of see it up on screen. And we talk to customers. Customers turn off the notifications on their app now to avoid that kind of happening to them while they're watching the game. But between compression, between kind of the CDN and feeding the CDNs across the region, back to some of what you were mentioning, and between encryption, this is where we're really trying to address that over time to reduce that gap.
Amil, do you want to just add to that in terms of the production side of things?
Yeah, I agree with Saeed and Danny. Latency obviously is a big issue on the OTT, and we are obviously working on efforts as well, make sure that we can reduce the amount of latency that's especially on the OTT platform. And again, we have a linear output as well, and obviously those issues don't reside within that. So infrastructure for sure needs to be worked at, and in order to be able to get that latency.
Okay, and then talking about sports rights, and in terms of sports rights and the properties, they are seemingly increasingly becoming more and more expensive. And especially for rights holders and broadcasters. I mean, how are we coming across, how are we monetizing them so that we can afford to buy the rights? I mean, briefly we discussed one of the European football rights holders asking for X amount, which might not be affordable. Danny, is this something that is coming across more and more? And how are you affording to pay what they're asking?
Just don't buy them. I think is one way to address it. I mean, ultimately, we're a commercial company. If the number makes sense, the number makes sense. If it doesn't, we don't purchase the rights. So I think a lot of sports rights comes down to that initial price that you pay. I think that's very, very key. But I think beyond that, there's also a responsibility on us, and to your point, how we monetize. I think key is pricing, making sure you get the pricing models right and flexible and give that access to the subscriber. I think also we're moving more and more into the advertising side as well. So if we look at a market like North Africa, even at a very low price, it's hard to monetize even the best of rights. So increasingly, we're looking at how we take games straight just to an advertising model, not behind a paywall, increase the monetization from that perspective. And I think also advertising in general, even behind the paywall. I think the challenge today is OTT numbers, how they're recognized by bodies like Ipsos is very different to linear broadcast. So I think kind of as the market evolves and the OTT market evolves more, having that kind of research that confirms the numbers and allows you to kind of monetize the inventory properly. So I think it's a combination of that subscription pricing model, but also being able to make those other revenue streams count as well.
And Emil, I guess that's the same for you guys
Absolutely,
as well.
and as Danny said, we need to look at a multi-tiered approach, let's say, and put the SVOD content, have the AVOD offerings as well. One solution doesn't fit everyone, and to have that variety of offerings opens up more of a revenue potential to be able to go into. And then I think another area that will be possible to be looked into is the syndication of these rights as well, to work with other broadcasters within the region to see how we can more maximize the potential of these rights, get more of the viewerships, and ultimately look at more sponsorship and advertising around that as well.
Okay, and then in terms of the way we look at sports and advertising, and we look at the data all the time in terms of viewership, and maybe Jamal, you have a comment on this, what are the current dynamics that you see in terms of the viewerships of, say, the UAE Football League in terms of age, say male and female? Do you look at that data and then try and focus in on how we can improve the broadcast?
If you are talking about the viewers, football is being viewing by different categories, different kind of people. For us in UAE, maybe we have some challenges because of we have big number of expats in the UAE, but mostly our viewers are from the local. So that's why what we are working now hard that, for example, we have English commentary for all matches. We are producing a few programs and through the social media in English and different languages. So we are trying our best to attract expats to feel that the league is for everyone. It's not specific for the locals only. This is for the viewership. Also, as a content, of course, when we produce the matches or the league, we have the strategy how to support our sponsors, our different categories of fans, kids. We usually show the entertainment that there's in the stadiums, the facilities. So we have different categories. Yeah.
That's good. And in terms of viewership in the Middle East and other regions, do we, say Amil or Danny, do you look at those numbers in terms of demographics? Are they different in the Middle East as opposed to other regions, or are they pretty similar?
I think from my perspective, I don't think it's that different within each region, to be honest, in terms of the demographics and who watches. I think what's kind of maybe different in the region is how they watch and how much they watch on piracy is different, I think, to some reason. Piracy is a challenge for every sports broadcaster in every single region. But I think in the Middle East, it's extremely challenging right now, piracy. We just recently had the UFC 308 event in Abu Dhabi. Actually, on the subscription side, we did very well. But we looked at just one Telegram feed alone, and that feed, only in UAE, had around 70,000 concurrent viewers. So when it comes to going back to the previous question, when it comes to that monetization, you're losing so much to the side at the moment on piracy that affects your monetization of your product. And I really think that's where the viewership in this region, as I say, it's a challenge everywhere, but I think it's a profession to a certain extent for customers. And when we look at some of the boxes that exist in the market today, a very active Android box market that opens up all the channels of all the products. These are kind of some of the challenges that we see and big difference, I think, in that kind of viewership experience. And we're starting to make inroads, particularly in UAE. We've had a lot of support from the UAE government. We've been able to raid. We've had arrests in the recent couple of months. And so that's starting to make a real difference and starting to help. But I think we need a really prolonged approach across many territories, and that will start to make a difference, I think, both to monetization and then that kind of dynamics of viewership as well and how that happens.
And on that viewership, Mate, maybe you can comment on this. Nowadays, the Gen Zs, the younger audiences, glued on their phones. How do we engage with the younger audiences, especially on the sports side, and maybe how is La Liga tapping into the audiences to try and get them to follow what it is you're doing?
So I think from a purely broadcasting experience, if people here have been able to watch any La Liga matches over the last 1 season and a half, we've been through a whole transformation of our image, of our viewing experience, from the angles of the camera, from the different graphics, the scoreboard. Even we changed the name of the competition. We changed the title sponsor from a banking brand to EA Sports. So at the end, the result of it is like a more immersive and dynamic experience in which you feel like you are more into a video game than in a football game itself. But speaking specifically about MENA, since last season we launched a new vertical of contents produced here in the UAE with local content creators. Some examples can be the first La Liga podcast in Arabic. We were working with an Egyptian influencer as a host with more than 15 million followers. We had the honor to have very good guests, such as, for example, Ashraf Benayat, the famous football reporter, Andres Iniesta, that was playing in Emirates FC here in Ras Al Khaimah. We've been doing a lot of documentaries of the top La Liga games, not only on a regional level, but we also focus on a hyper-local level. We have a program called La Liga Show in different countries like Iraq, Jordan, UAE, Egypt, in which we work with some local content creators with the purpose of having this super local experience. We expected this experience to have very good results, but the reality and the final numbers have been way better than expected. We've done 12 different projects related to content. We've worked with more than 40 content creators, and at the end, the final reach has been something close to the 140 million views. So this is, again, another way to promote our final product, which is the game on our broadcasters in the region, as well as having another point of connection with our fans, not only on the weekends during the match, but also during the rest of the week.
That's interesting. You say that you've engaged a local social media commentator on the sport. I think that's a trend that we've seen, especially with companies like, say, Sky Sports in the UK, where they're now removing some of their older presenters and bringing in more of a younger generation who look different and can relate to their fans and the people that are watching. And they now are inviting social media personalities to come and comment on the games. That's very interesting. That's happening right now.
I think it's a mix between the experience of those people, those reporters that are the ones living the let's say, like the old way of football, but I think they have a lot of things to add to the new generation, and the mix of the new generations with the not that new generations. I don't want to mention the word old, but I think it's the perfect mix. But of course, everything has an angle on the Gen Z population, of course.
Actually, Jamal, on that kind of subject, how is the UAE Pro League handling the subject of attracting the younger fans and keeping them on board currently? What are the plans for the Pro League?
For the young fans, they are more into technology and more into numbers. That's why I think the way of producing a match on old school, let's say, by standard cameras and normal running order, it's like maybe they will feel it's a bit boring. So for us in the UAE Pro League, what we have done for the last 2 seasons, 3 seasons, we focus more into putting more statistics, putting more head-to-head between the players. Usually we use the very basic stats in the match for the corners, offsides, and this kind of information in the match. But now we are integrating with a service provider with more details data, and the way of viewing it on screen by TV graphics or using the AR is keeping the match more more with technology. It's making the fans more watching the match, seeing some details and some numbers. So here, this is what we are doing to attract the young generation.
And on that, Danny, in terms of subscribers as such, how would someone like Starzplay keep on track or look at how you're attracting not only new subscribers, but a younger subscriber as well?
I think it starts with, and what we see La Liga doing is a really good example of that. I think it starts with the rights owner and what they do and the value they bring to their property. What La Liga have done kind of locally, we see is really good. What they've done with EA is very strong. We know that, when we talk to our friends, for example, at NBA, the impact that NBA 2K as a PlayStation game has on that person becoming a fan later on and a buyer later on is very, very strong. So I think, it really starts with the rights producer and what they can bring and how they bring that to the region. We're doing a show with Serie A at the moment that we'll launch on 27th of November that we filmed across 4 countries. And it's really to give a young talent from the region the chance to go and play with a Serie A club, take a youth contract at that club, and hopefully evolve through and come through to the first team. So you have that combination of what the rights holder does and then how you can bring that to life with your own marketing and your own localization on the ground. We do a lot of stuff as well around UFC, a lot of podcasts, a lot of local production, local commentary as well to bring that content to that younger viewer. I mean, we saw a good example last week. We went to an interesting event, a Power Slap event in Abu Dhabi. First time I've attended. Quite a strange event to see, but good fun. But when you go to that event, the whole event is set up in a way to bring influencers into that event to capture content. They're all invited, have a very clear area where they get good visibility to the stars, where they get good visibility to the stage. So immediately that content's being captured, it's being posted, and it's building that kind of interest amongst the audience. So these things make a real difference in the long run. And I think on a subscription level, it's a bit of a balance because often, maybe for that audience, it's not them buying the subscription directly. So I think it's, there's subscription maybe about targeting the buyer, but then driving the engagement from all parts of that household and that family across the board.
So I've talked about this to a few people today. I have a younger daughter, 19. And last Christmas, she was here in Dubai and started talking about F1 to me. And she knows nothing about motorsport, nothing at all. So I asked more questions. She watched Drive to Survive and really got engaged with F1, the drivers, and what they're doing. And then I looked into it further. I said, how do you know so much about F1? Is it a new boyfriend? Which was a worry. Thankfully it wasn't. But she's on social media, on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, following the drivers, following the teams, and has started to absorb the stats and the data that she's just following. Is this something that we might be missing a trick in this region, where we're not engaging the younger fans on a social level and attracting, the Gen Zs who have a phone in their hand? I mean, I looked into this. The F1 actually employed a number of 20-year-olds who know how to operate these social platforms, and they're just constantly filming content and pushing it out. Amir, is this a trick that we're missing maybe in this region?
I don't think we're missing the trick as such. It's just the implementation of it. And like the guys have said here, Gen Z, millennials, and now the Gen AI, the way they want to consume the content is a lot different than what we're used to. So that second screen experience has to be part of your offering, especially to that crowd of people. So yes, it's absolutely developing the content, developing it in a way that they start interacting with it is definitely something that we want. And as Danny said, that then ultimately leads to them having to subscribe to more of your services and the values that you offer. We, for example, do this. We offer live polls on our application. People can interact, who's going to score the next goal, how's this going to happen. There's a lot of background information as well that you can provide them. And with all these now technologies, as you mentioned, the AR, the VR, the AI now, which is going to play a big role in how these millennials and Gen Z start consuming the content is going to play a big role. And we can see the traction is going to start. And slowly but surely, I think we'll get there to be having education.
And yeah, I think it's not just about kind of the companies in region missing a trick. I think up till recent times, maybe some of the leagues and some of the sports kind of organizations also didn't take the region as seriously. And I think also that's really starting to change. You see with La Liga and their office here now, Serie A have an office here now, and I think also the games being locally as well is making a big difference. What we see happening in Saudi with the sports events taking place, what we see happening in UAE, the same with UFC, with NBA and some of these things happening. I think that brings those events as well to the audience. It engages them more with that content when they get to see that person live. I know with my own daughter, seeing basketball now, she's a basketball fan. Why? Because she actually saw the games live, and it really changed her perspective on the sport. So I think it's also, the leagues, I think, are taking the region a lot more seriously, and that's kind of benefiting as well the end customer or the end future fan of that league.
Yeah, just to comment, I think one of the other things that we focused on was the technology side of things, right? And we looked at how social media is consumed by Gen Z. We actually did quite a big study with the ICC, and this started about 3 to 4 years ago, where because of, first of all, the viewing habits of Gen Z, they don't spend too much time in front of the screen. They want it now and then. They want to be portable rather than sit in front of a traditional television to watch this. We came up with the idea, and again, the same experience of yours with my daughters and how they consumed social media, and it was all vertical on their phone, right? And we decided that the way that we've got to go now, instead of 16:9, go 9:16. So we started producing, and it took us about 2 years to master it, producing content now on a 9:16 format. And for the first launch, it was the Cricket World Cup that we launched, ICC launched a simultaneous broadcast on social media in a vertical format. It had an amazing response because not only we captured 9:16, but the graphics was created in 9:16 as well. Because when you start to watch traditional TV broadcasts on a mobile device like a telephone, the graphics doesn't make sense because they're too small to read. And they had a tremendous response to this, where this has now become a simultaneous broadcast as a normal thing that ICC doing on all their production or their major production. And I think that's really, one of the things that it drives the social media by the consumption of social media. And if broadcasters not ready to adapt their product in a way that is being consumed by Gen Z, then this is something that we feel they're going to get left behind.
Yeah, on that, I was going to ask you, what is actually driving these sports and broadcasts and entertainment within this region in terms of technology? What are the content creators asking you, this is what we want to do, this is what we'd like to do, and how can we deliver this? Are you seeing more AR, VR, drones. I mean, it's all out there, but are they asking more and more of this?
I think this goes back to your previous question, and I think I'm glad that Danny went to see the Power Slap and the UFCs and events like this, because these are one of the reasons that we've now are really starting to set up and heavily in this part of the world is if the request from all our clients, worldwide clients, to be here and to set up. But if you go back and look at the viewing habits, I mean, the consumers are doesn't matter where they are, they're becoming more clever, they're becoming more demanding because they've got a huge exposure to international content being, captured around the world and being available. As the consumers demand a better product, a more in tune with what's happening in other leagues, in other sporting events, in other events around the world, I think broadcasters here need to now step up and try and match the desire and the aspiration that the viewers have, right? And therefore, there's needs for companies like us. I mean, NEP has been one of the drivers of innovation around the world. And part of the reason that we are here, we've had, our clients around the world saying now we've got an area of focus in the Middle East, and we want to have the same delivery, the same facilities, the same technology that we use, whatever we're using in Europe. I mean, for example, the UFCs, the WWEs, these guys, they have got a demand that they're not going to negotiate. So they want the same specification anywhere in the world. And that's one of the reasons. The other reason is, of course, the region is growing and has a need for that growth. You need companies similar to NEP that are technology-driven, innovation-driven, and we are ahead of the game thinking for some of our clients and making those possibilities available in advance. When you talk about drones, when you talk about AR and VR, it's becoming a norm in most of the product that we're working on at the moment. They're not a nicety anymore, right? They're as absolute necessity. One of the other products that we work with is Live Golf, for example. In Live Golf, the drone, and it's quite amazing, the company that they brought over to do the drones is the gaming guys. So they wear the goggles and literally track the drones through the goggles rather than the traditional handheld control. But the enhancement that it provides, to the broadcast is absolutely amazing. Nothing that gets seen, in normal television. So that's, I think, demand of broadcasters is really initiated by demand of viewers. And that's one of the reasons that we are here, really.
Amil, are you seeing that where you're being asked to do a lot more in terms of technology, in terms of your viewers and how to change the way your productions are happening?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, technology drives a lot of the innovations that we have to, for the viewers, what they're requesting, what they want, how do they want it, and as they said, the adaptation of AR, VR, the new technologies there are absolutely, these are crucial and are needed for us as a broadcaster to keep that fan base engaged. And it's growing more, to Danny's point as well, it's like you've got the international rights that are coming in, etc. But likewise, we have to look and cater for the local sports and the federations that exist within the region and be able to grow them as well. And again, we use technology to be able to enhance that, to give more of a better offering and get more of an engagement coming out from the fan base that we have, the local fan base.
We were speaking yesterday evening that you had a broadcaster that wanted to go from UHD to 4K, and one way of describing it's 4 times better. In practice, it may not be, but it's a better picture. But then there's the cost element. How do we get over the fact that it costs more to produce, and someone has to pay for that? And that sometimes has to be passed down to the consumers. But how do we monetize that to produce better content in a higher quality Is there something that we can be done, or maybe it's a collective agreement between not only the producer, the production, the OTT platforms, and the federations? Does it require more of joint conversations?
I guess is look. I think invariably, you know, when you're talking about who takes on, unfortunately, I think in our world is always the producers who take that responsibility on. Whereas I really feel that it should be the federations, the rights holders, and those guys who want their product, you know, to be advertised, to be monetized, to be, you know, the best in class, right? But the reality is that, you know, producers end up having to build to foot that bill. I think how do we work together? Obviously, technology is, you know, growing very fast. I think we are talking about, you know, an era now that, you know, eventually everything's going to go to IP, and the pace of that IP, I think the technology moves that amortization of assets becomes a lot easier rather than the way, you know, assets were used. You can now, you know, with having remote productions and use of or amortization of equipment across the wide region rather than being fixed in a NCR, you know, allows you to amortize on some of those technology. But unfortunately, I think, you know, at the end of the day, it becomes the producers that you know, need to make that decision whether they're going to, you know, take that hike and move to a, you know, new format.
I think it's simple. If it has a return, you do it. It's really as simple as that. You know, tech can sometimes be for tech's sake without actually adding to your monetization. So I think, you know, when there's tech that makes sense, you do it. I mean, we had cases recently, you know, AI is all the talk at the moment, and understand why, but we had a case recently reviewing an AI business case where actually it was still cheaper to do it with people than use the AI to do it, right? And that's not always the case when it comes to sports clipping. Now we use AI tools to clip our sports, put it straight up on Google One Box and get it out to the customer quicker than we ever could imagine. So I think if the tech makes sense, if it delivers a value either to you as a company, or it delivers a value you can monetize, you will do it, essentially, I think.
Amil, do you see the costs going up?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it resonates with me. What Danny's saying is, you know, it has to have an ROI against it, right? So we can make technology investments. You know, obviously we all go to the shows, IBCs, NABs, and we see all these brand new shiny toys and things that they can do. However, do they actually make an impact that we want? And does it increase my revenues? Does it increase my viewerships? So I think there's a balance that needs to be struck between technological innovations against potential revenues that can bring in.
And Jamal, in terms of the UA League, we've seen the production values go up with the use of AR, and in terms of new graphic sets and how you treat certain derby matches. But that comes at a cost. I would assume that someone has to pay for the extra that's going in. But how do you justify that to your sponsors or the production companies like NEP that have to pay that extra? Are you seeing the extra value you get out of the production that you put in? Because it's definitely looking better every year. It's improving.
For us as a league, we're usually in the middle between the TV right holders and between the production company. So the thing that we know sometimes, we are even in our special finals in like Super Cup or Cup final, we usually invest more to use like new technology or something that never happened before, you know, as a trial or as a test. We believe that improve the production in terms of all the elements, TV graphics, special cameras like drones, Skycam, and all the things. It will increase our value for the broadcasters, because broadcasters sometimes, okay, if you are talking about football, maybe the technical side is not that high, but the quality of broadcast is more interesting for them. So we usually do our best to improve our product. We are implementing new things to raise the value of our product with the TV right holders.
Okay, and Mete, one final question for all of you. So, what's your overview of sports and broadcasting in this region specifically, and where do you see it over the next 5 to 10 years? I mean, there's a lot of investment right now, but how do you see it growing?
So from a rights holder perspective, I would highlight two factors, I would say. We can speak about more, but mainly two. Number one is, I think, the emergence of new players, new regional and local platforms. This could be good for rights holder, but at the same time, we are witnessing as well an emergence of new contents. We are not competing anymore with European football. We are competing with regional leagues that are becoming stronger, such as UAE Pro League, Saudi Pro League, and many others. We are competing with other ways of entertainment. We were mentioning Power Slap. We are right now competing with a lot of different ways of entertainment and other sports. So I think it will be key to differentiate ourselves from a technical perspective, trying to improve our product from many different angles. Technology will be key as well, from AI to immersive technology and many others. The second factor, which for us right now is the most important one, and I think William from 1001, our broadcast for Iraq, was mentioning it this morning, is piracy. From La Liga, we are now treating or addressing this topic very strongly. Actually, our president, he always say that he's investing 60% of his time tackling this issue. We really think that if we don't join forces, I mean, broadcasters, rights holders, ISPs, tech companies, I think we see a really bad future and a really like a dramatic change in the sports industry in the short term. So that's why we are working on two different strategies. One is like a global strategy. We are in conversations with the main tech companies, but we are working as well on a regional level. Best example that we have is here in the UAE, we are partnering with the Ministry of Economy. We will be opening an anti-piracy lab in the coming weeks with a team employed by La Liga, with the technology developed and created by La Liga over the last 10 years. And we will be tackling this problem from a technological point of sight and with dynamic blockings and with many other different ways. I think it's something really important, and I think that right now our studies and our data shows that La Liga clubs, just as an example, are suffering a loss of 700 million euros per year due to piracy issues. So right now is the #1 topic for us in the company.
And Danny, kind of adding to that, how do you see the overview? And obviously these challenges are faced by you as well.
Yeah, I think 5 to 10 years is a long way to look ahead. We hit how quickly things change. But look, I think, as rightly said, piracy is a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge, and it's a huge challenge to the rights owners, because ultimately, you know, they need to monetize their product, and for them to monetize their product, they need partners like us to monetize their product. And if we can't do that, it affects the whole economics of the business. And as you said, you know, 700 million lost a year is a huge number, and to me that even feels conservative in terms of a number when you look at the piracy, at least in this region. So I think, you know, something has to be done and something has to evolve on the piracy side, either technically, and you talk about the tech companies, and it's great to hear La Liga are taking pressure there. I look at even Google today, the ads that they will place a piracy ad on my YouTube page, Google. So where's the control from the guy that should have control? I look at the apps in the App Store, you know, on a ICC World Cup, a big game, India-Pakistan. You'll see 6 out of the top 10 apps in the Apple or Google store are piracy apps. So again, you know, you need that kind of, you need that pressure to start with some of those tech companies and realizing the responsibility they have. And then I think it's the technical evolution and some of the things we started to see, as you say, with the UAE government, really starting to make a difference and kind of seeing that happen across the region. And I think also I agree, I think the local properties or the local leagues are becoming more and more important. They're improving in their quality. And I think they're also starting to change their view on monetization. I think before it's been very much, and understandably so, about the public broadcast and putting those events out for free, but you do start to see that change now where I think local leagues across the region are becoming much more aware of their production, of the quality, and those leagues are really starting to grow in importance. And we see that, for example, with the Saudi League, just how impactful that's been in Saudi and how that stands out clearly as the number one. So I think that evolution will also be key. And I think finally, I think it's, what's going to happen in terms of monetization. We all need to find those additional routes of monetization, whether it's free viewing of content, free viewing of matches in certain territories. We see it when we look at what DAZN are doing. They're bringing more and more services to their app. In their regions, they bring betting into their apps to be able to monetize the rights. They're bringing in merchandising. They're bringing in ticketing. So I think, what are those other revenues that sit around that core broadcast revenue that can start to be capitalized on over time as well?
And Jamal, how do we see the Pro League or evolution over the next few years?
Yes, we always trying to have these plans for the future. We try to always. For us as a league, the main thing that we are doing is first of all improve our the facilities in the stadiums. This is the main thing first when we think about the stadiums, how we make the facilities, the broadcast facilities, the lighting, and in terms of the infrastructure of the stadiums. But yeah.
Okay, Saeed, next couple of years for you guys. It's going to be busy, I hope.
Yeah, look, I think, from our point of view, it goes back to the local scene. We see a massive amount of growth locally. We've talked about Saudi, we've talked about UAE, and there is many other regions within GCC and within Middle East that are growing and demanding better product. And also, the influence from broadcasters, rights holders globally to come to this market, right? And, and not compromising their demands of what they want and the technology they like to have as they would have back in their home country. And I think, when you see NBA coming here, when you see WTA coming to this part of the world, when you see, it's all about consistency, it's all about delivering and having the same, product produced out of Middle East as they are in their home country, and for them to be able to enable themselves to do this, they need to have the same delivery as they have in their home country. We see, we as NEP are investing heavily in the region, and of course we're going to be here for a long haul, and hoping to help broadcasters to produce a better product.
And finally, Amil, Vision 2030 and World Cup and all these great products.
Absolutely. I mean, look, piracy, number one, we need to curtail piracy. We need the support, obviously, of the regulators as well to make the enforcements. We're doing that now within our region to be able to make those enforcements, to start bringing takedowns. Obviously, that will go hand in hand with, everything that's going to develop within our industry. In the next 5 to 10 years, yes, absolutely. We look at the big IPs that are coming in. How do we look at the monetization around those? What platforms? Where do we put them out to? How do we cater for the new generations? But I think importantly more is also growing the local sports, growing the local talents that we have. I think that resonates a lot with our...
in terms of the grassroots level.
Absolutely. From the grassroots level to grow those sports. And then we have unique nuances in our region as well with the Arabic commentary, which again resonates more with our viewers. So I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you want to see the growth definitely in the sports that we have currently that are running and the new up and coming local federations and sports that we grow.
Lovely. I want to thank Broadcast Pro for this opportunity and also thank all my panel guests. If you can give them a round of applause, please.